process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
And welcome to Real Talk with the Cummings. My name is Mark Angelo.
And I'm Lena Ariel. Thank you guys for joining us on this Tuesday night.
Yes.
Rainy Tuesday night again in
rainy.
Portland, but
it's going to be like this really
for 6 weeks.
They say, it's time to leave.
Yeah. It's been great, Portland, but
yeah,
you kind of wet us out here.
I don't know how people do it, really. Sun is so important. And although we do supplement with vitamin D3, which is essential, especially if you live in areas that you're not getting as much sun as you should, your people here are so angry and depressed.
I know, like that thing we had happen to us at the gym the other day that we talked about already. But it's really a depressive type of a town because there's so little sun. We heard from a person... We were doing some banking and stuff, and we heard the guy say that it's 60 days out of the year that it literally has sun.
Yeah, and the rest of 300 is gloomy and dark. Hey, team, long time no see.
Yes,
Glad you can join us today. Thank you for joining us. So I like sun. I like not having to wear a ton of clothes and flip-flops and shorts and things of that nature.
We're talking about not wearing many clothes.
No, it's still not.
He's getting some body definition going on. Today at the gym, he was hitting it hard too.
Yeah.
What'd you do on the deadlift? My gosh, you just almost hit 200.
Yeah, 180. And last week I did what was it, 120 last week. So I upped my from 50 and 4. Was it 12 or 10 reps? I don't remember now.
We have this app that does all that stuff, and it keeps track of it so that we're not able to, remember everything from week to week. So it's really nice.
And the key with all that is progressive overloading. In other words, either you increase the weight or you increase the repetition. You constantly have to be putting stress on your muscle so that the muscle fibers will rebuild as they break down, and you become stronger and stronger, and your body changes, and that's the name of the game. So I've been breaking all sorts of personal bests, and I'm so excited, and really I'm happy about my shoulders too. I mean, for a while that was it was like my kryptonite. That was a
concern, because I remember ever since we've been together, you've always kind of been restricted by
the shoulder
pain that you experience.
So it's getting better, and today I broke my personal best. 110 pounds, shoulder pressing. And I was struggling with 90 last week.
Last week I was helping you with 90.
Yeah.
And then this week you didn't need any help.
No.
I mean, I was there just to be a supportive person, but it's
good stuff. Good stuff. I can't wait. I mean, feeling strong, energized, endurance. It's just an amazing thing, especially as you age, because as you age, from the age of 35 onwards,
muscle development
goes downhill. And so that's one of the reasons we get so sick, because we lose our immune system, which is closely tied to your muscular or neuromuscular system.
But that's the reason why we want to live in a place that appreciates that kind of thing, because I mean, what's the sense of getting your body all toned out and everything if you can't really
show it off?
I mean, I know people think, oh, that's prideful, but you work so hard in the
Right.
gym. You eat right, and you want to be able to enjoy your body, you know.
Exactly.
And we're tropical people,
Yeah,
so
I like,
you know.
I don't, all these like, yeah, too much clothes, too much clothes. So, yeah, definitely moving is in the near future because this place just doesn't cut it. Anyway, we got a lot of exciting information to provide you guys today, lots and lots to talk about. So today we're going to talk about in the health section, how much potassium do you really need
Potassium?
per day?
We have potassium right here, right?
Yeah, well,
Isn't this potassium?
Well, yeah. It's
A banana is
banana
potassium.
has
That's what we've always been told.
right.
Bananas are like the king of potassium,
Right.
but the fact is that bananas aren't really all
that high. No, they're not
right?
that high.
I
It's
mean-
not one of the highest foods that provides potassium. There are other foods that will provide potassium, and potassium is very important for many different reasons, and which we'll go into in detail here. Potassium is the third most abundant mineral in your body and plays an important role in several body processes. However, very few people consume enough of it. In fact, nearly, get this, 98%, you heard right, 98% of all adults in the United States are not meeting the daily intake recommended.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's only 2% of people
Yeah.
are meeting their recommended. But how many people are meeting their and surpassing their recommended daily allowance of sugar?
Oh my gosh, I think we've got tons and tons of people doing
Maybe
that.
2% aren't,
Yeah,
right?
tons and tons.
So what is potassium? I'm
Yeah.
wondering.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't even know what they're putting in their bodies. What they think this is a garbage disposal.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
really think that whatever goes in has a purpose for being there.
Exactly.
The body doesn't. It's what we were talking about was how ancient our bodies are and how ancient they rely on ancient habits and ancient instinct.
Mhm.
That this modern 21st century day and age that we live in, it does not cater to that mindset.
Exactly. Because we are a program. Our DNA is programmed. We don't just eat for the fun of it. Although we think that's what we do. It's like, ooh, cookies, ooh, chocolate, ooh, this. But it's that's why we're so sick. So let's tell them a little bit about potassium and what it is.
Wanted to say hi to Amanda.
Hey, Amanda.
Field says
Hello
with a heart. Potassium is an incredibly important mineral and electrolyte.
Mm-hmm.
So it's found in Powerade?
Not exactly.
It's found in a variety of whole foods, including leafy vegetables, legumes, and fish, such as salmon.
Not my favorite fish. I prefer tuna. Talking about tuna, that's what we had for our third meal of the day today. About 98% of potassium in your body is found, guess where? Inside the cells. Of this, 80% is found inside muscle cells, while 20% is in bone, liver, and red blood cells. You ever had a really bad cramp?
Oh, yeah.
I used to get really bad ones. Low potassium, and also could be dehydration. You got those two components.
This mineral plays a necessary role in a variety of processes in the body. It is involved in muscle contractions, heart function, and managing water balance.
Very important. When you die, you're flatline, and they go, and they put those electrical. It's like they're trying to get all the proper minerals that your heart, like potassium plays a massive role in your heart, and it goes down, and you can literally your muscle in your heart stops working. So those little paddle that get you back to par,
Right.
so you get that potassium and all the other minerals back in alignment because they're out of whack. And also that water balance is an important factor. Very important.
I think it's interesting, though, that this says that there are 3 functions, right?
Mhm.
Muscle contractions,
Mm-hmm.
heart function,
Mhm.
and managing water balance.
Yes.
And when you take, when trans women take, that Spiro,
That very
which
dangerous,
is supposedly a heart
Mhm.
cardiac,
Mhm.
type medicine,
Right.
initially made for that purpose.
Exactly.
It restricts, the water No, what is it?
It's supposed to, because it's supposed to be a diuretic, but it doesn't work exactly like that in theory. It can, and bodybuilders use it during the last couple of days
when they're cutting up.
They're trying to dry themselves. They can't have any sodium. They can't drink any water, because then we're looking at problems, right? And it's also aldactone or spironolactone is a potassium-sparing drug.
Potassium sparing.
Yeah, so it's very dangerous.
Okay, so think about this. 98% of the general public does not get enough potassium. And I would venture to say that probably 100% of trans women don't get enough potassium. Maybe 1% do.
Mm-hmm.
But even the potassium that they're getting
Mm-hmm.
is being restricted.
Exactly. And Amanda had a question.
Is flax oil good for us?
Any oil is considered junk food.
It's great for your hair.
Yeah, for your hair, your face, and things like that. But consuming oil, the molecules have been altered. So you're better off eating flax, buying the seeds and kind of like grinding them and putting them on top of your cereal, oatmeal. That's the kind of cereal I'm talking about. Or you could throw them on in your smoothie, but stay away from oils. Olive oil, which is touted to be like the greatest oil. Eat the olives, not the oil. The process that these food go through is considered junk food in the circles of research and information that we have read. But of course, always consult your doctor for any kind of information of that sort, because according to theory, your doctors know best. All right, so this mineral plays a necessary role in a variety of processes in the body. It involves in muscle contraction, heart function, and managing. We already said that.
That's okay.
All right, so we repeat it again.
Yeah. People need to know,
Yeah.
muscle contractions, you guys. It's managing water balance,
Yes.
heart function.
Very three important things. So despite its importance, very few people worldwide get enough of this mineral.
A diet rich in potassium is associated with a lower risk of high blood pressure, which seems to be the standard, seem to be changing for high blood pressure.
Yes, because now they keep making the numbers like they're messing with
ridiculously
it low so that you're on blood pressure medication. And for trans guys who are on testosterone, many of you have noticed that your blood pressure goes up when you're on T. And you got to be very mindful how much sodium you take. You got to make sure you have enough potassium. That's the name of the game.
Well, they're also associated with a lower risk of kidney stones and osteoporosis, among other benefits.
What happens to the majority of trans women that are on Spiro? What happens to their
bones
posture?
Deteriorate.
Exactly.
They start really having this kind of posture that pitches forward.
Yes. So potassium is an important mineral and electrolyte involved in muscle. Okay, repeats it again here. Is deficiency common though? Well, unfortunately, most adults don't consume enough potassium.
In many countries, a Western diet is often to blame, likely because it favors processed foods, which are poor sources of this mineral. And one of the things that we noticed yesterday when we went to Wenco Foods, we were looking for sources of protein. And we looked at those frozen packages of like burgers and stuff that people will buy, around the 4th of July, just like throw it on the grill and stuff.
Exactly.
35, 40 grams of fat in one burger. That's before the toppings. That's before you put
the cheese,
mayo,
the bacon,
and cheese and bacon. Yeah. And it's like, wow, I mean, these are the things that Americans are getting a lot of. They're getting a lot of fat, but not enough potassium.
Exactly. And however, just because people aren't getting enough doesn't mean they're deficient. A potassium deficiency, also known as hypokalemia, is characterized by a blood level of potassium less than 3.5 mmol per liter. And Amanda says that good because it tastes bad. It does. I've tried flaxseed oil, not the best tasting oil. But flaxseed, on the other hand, that's pretty yummy.
Surprisingly, deficiency are rarely caused by a lack of potassium in the diet. They usually occur when the body loses too much potassium, such as with chronic diarrhea or vomiting. You may also lose potassium if you're taking diuretics.
Bingo!
Like Spiro.
Like
aldactone.
Exactly.
which are medications that cause your body to lose water. You need water. We're made of like what?
Yeah.
How many percent?
90-something% of water, we're mostly all water. And if you don't, it's like if you're taking things that dehydrate you and cause all sorts of other problems, then we're, not good. So symptoms of deficiency depends on your blood levels. Here are the symptoms for 3 different levels of deficiency.
Mild deficiency, when a person has blood levels of 3 to 3.5 mmol a liter, it usually does not have symptoms.
Moderate deficiency happens at 2.5 to 3 mmol per liter. Symptoms include cramping, muscle pain, weakness, and discomfort. You wonder why a lot of trans women that are like lethargic and they're tired and they're just like can't seem to
Most
find
of
the
the
zest
time,
of life.
I don't think it's from working out too hard.
No, not at all.
Severe deficiency happens at less than 2.5 mmol per liter. Symptoms include irregular heartbeat, because remember, potassium regulates heart
They're hard.
function.
That's why. Yep.
And paralysis.
Not good. A lot of these bodybuilders, when they're on stage, have literally collapsed on stage because of the aldactone. Just like timber, they all of a sudden they cramp up, they can't move. Their heart muscles, many of them have had to be like resuscitated because
Wow.
they've like, so scary stuff. Not too fond of that particular medication.
So what are the best dietary sources of potassium? You think that they are the banana?
Mm-hmm.
Well, check again. You might be surprised.
Yep. So the best way to increase your potassium intake is through your diet. Potassium is found in a variety of whole foods, especially fruits and vegetables.
Due to the insufficient evidence behind the mineral, and I wonder why that is. I wonder why researchers don't study it so that we can get some conclusive data.
Exactly.
I think it's because they don't want people to know, and they want them to make mistakes. Nutrition experts haven't determined a reference daily intake. How convenient.
Yeah, so
An RDI is the daily amount of a nutrient likely to meet the needs for 97 to 98% of healthy people.
you think that'd be important for them to find out? Well, below are some foods that are excellent sources of potassium, as well as how much they contain in a 3.5 ounce or 100 grams per serving.
Beet greens cooked have 909 milligrams of potassium in them.
That's a lot. And yams baked, 670 milligrams.
Yummy white potatoes baked have 544 milligrams. I noticed that there isn't a banana in the mix yet.
Well,
I know.
Yeah. It's still a bit
Yeah,
ways.
it's a bit ways.
Soybeans cooked, 539 milligrams.
Avocado, 485 milligrams.
Sweet potatoes baked, 475.
Cooked spinach, 466 milligrams.
Edamame beans, 436 milligrams.
Salmon cooked, 414 milligrams. And coming up last,
And drum roll, please, bananas, 358 milligrams. That's not too bad, If you eat a couple bananas a day, and you have avocado and you cook some or have some spinach and then or some white potato, you should be pretty good to go. So, what are the health benefits of potassium?
a diet rich in potassium is associated with some impressive health benefits. It may prevent or alleviate a variety of health problems, including
high blood pressure. Many studies have shown that potassium-rich diets can lower your blood pressure, especially for people with high blood pressure.
That's
So
really
trans
important for
guys.
trans guys. Yeah.
Get that potassium in you instead of taking unhealthy medication that will have other complications.
Salt sensitivity. People with this condition may experience a 10% increase in blood pressure after eating salt. A potassium-rich diet may eliminate salt sensitivity. And we don't really like salt. We think it's one of those, additives that really don't serve a real purpose.
No, and especially if your potassium pump is not working correctly, because the more potassium you have, the body's able to excrete that excess sodium, and it keeps your blood pressure to check, it keeps your heart healthy. But people don't know how to balance your diets correctly, and that is why we're having problems. So right away they run to their doctor and they want some pill, you know. So, stroke. Several studies have shown that a potassium-rich diet may reduce the risk of stroke by up to 27%.
Osteoporosis. Studies have shown that a potassium-rich diet may help prevent osteoporosis, a condition associated with an increased risk of bone fractures.
Kidney stones. Studies have found that potassium-rich diets are associated with a significantly lower risk of kidney stones than diets low in this mineral. So you guys can really save yourself a lot of heartache, you know, and not just trans people, but everyone in general. You want to keep your blood pressure in check. You want to be able to have foods that are a little higher in salt. You need to increase your potassium so that your body knows how to regulate it. You want to be careful about not having a blood clot because you're on hormones. If you have low potassium and you're on hormones, you're at risk for clotting, which will lead to a heart attack or stroke. And osteoporosis is something that is also not very good as we're aging.
So the big question, how much should you consume per day? Doctors have already, or experts have already stated that they haven't spent their time researching to find out for sure.
Right.
But your daily potassium needs can depend on a variety of factors, including your health status, your activity level, and ethnicity.
Yes, even though there isn't an RDI for potassium, organizations around the world have recommended consuming at least 3,500 milligrams per day through food.
These organizations include the World Health Organization and countries including the UK, Spain, Mexico, and Belgium.
Other countries, including the United States of America, Canada, South Korea, and Bulgaria, recommended consuming at least 4,700 milligrams per day through food.
Interestingly, it seems that when people consume more than 4,700 milligrams per day, there appear to be little or no extra health benefits.
However, there are several groups of people who may benefit more than others from meeting this higher recommendation. These people include
athletes. Those who participate in long and intense exercises may lose a significant amount of potassium through sweat.
African Americans. Studies have found that consuming 4,700 milligrams of potassium daily can eliminate salt sensitivity, a condition more common among people of African American descent that tend to have higher blood pressure. And, you know,
I wonder what sickle cell anemia.
That is a genetic, very prone to African American as well. Yes.
I wonder if it has a connection to potassium.
It might. It just might.
High risk groups. People at risk of high blood pressure, kidney stones, osteoporosis, or stroke may benefit from consuming at least 4,700 milligrams of potassium per day.
In short, aim to consume minimally 3,500 to 4,700 milligrams of this mineral per day from foods. People who need more potassium should aim toward the higher end. Don't recommend the supplementation. I've read here actually they're going to talk about it in the past that you can't really regulate supplementation too much, that it can end up putting you over. And just as bad as it is to be under potassium, it's also very dangerous to be over potassium level.
Surprisingly, potassium supplements are usually not great sources of this mineral. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, limits over-the-counter potassium chloride supplements to less than 100 milligrams per serving, just 2% of the U.S. daily recommendation.
However, this doesn't apply to other forms of potassium supplements. Taking too much of this mineral can cause excess amount to build up in the blood, which is known as hyperkalemia. In some cases, this may cause an irregular heartbeat called cardiac arrhythmia, which can be fatal.
It's a big word, fatal.
Fatal, not a good one.
Furthermore, studies have found that potassium supplements that provide high doses may damage the lining of the gut.
So, however, people who are deficient or at risk of deficiency may require a higher dose potassium supplement. In these cases, doctors may prescribe a higher dose supplement and monitor you for any reaction.
So how much is too much? An excess of potassium in the blood is known as hyperkalemia. The condition is characterized by a blood level higher than 5.0 mmol per liter, and it can be dangerous.
Just as dangerous as to be under, it is as dangerous to be over. For a healthy adult, there is no significant evidence that potassium from foods can cause hyperkalemia. So by eating your food, your body knows what to do with food. But supplementation, because it's synthetic, remember, anything's synthetic, the body has a hard time regulating it, and the heart probably does too. For this reason, potassium from food does not have a tolerable upper intake level. This is the most a healthy adult can consume in a day without adverse effect.
Hyperkalemia generally affects people with poor kidney function or people who take medications that may affect kidney function. This is because excess potassium is mainly removed by the kidneys. Therefore, poor kidney function may result in a buildup of this material in the blood.
However, poor kidney function isn't the only cause of hyperkalemia. Taking too many potassium supplements may also cause this. Compared to foods, potassium supplements are small and easy to take. Taking too many at once may overwhelm the kidneys in its ability to remove excess potassium. So people always think supplement, take a pill, but that could overly saturate the receptors.
Oh, yeah. Additionally, there are several groups of people who may need less of this mineral than others, including people with chronic kidney disease. This disease increases the risk of hyperkalemia. People with chronic kidney disease should ask their doctor how much potassium is right for them.
Once you mess your kidneys up or your liver, those are your two main filtering system in your body. And most people don't respect that. They take orals, they take medication that just puts a lot of strain on your kidneys, on your liver. And once those are gone, you need a transplant. And that's kind of heavy duty. Those taking blood pressure medication, some blood pressure medications, such as ACE inhibitors, may increase the risk of hyperkalemia. This is very interesting and not in a good way. I'll finish reading the sentence and I'll say what my thoughts are. People taking this medication may need to watch your potassium intake. I've known and had a friend who was on high blood pressure medication because of testosterone and probably had an increase of hyperkalemia, which led to the heart attack and complication that were fatal. When you take blood pressure medication, you're increasing that hyperkalemia. People they don't have a clue. As we mentioned the other day, we're not saying don't be on hormones. We both are. You just have to do lots and lots of damage control and really be mindful of what you're putting in your body. Be an investigator, constantly be listening to your body. Your body speaks to you.
And elderly people. As people age, their kidney function declines. Elderly people are also more likely to take medications that affect the risk of hyperkalemia.
When I was working in nursing homes, the Dr. A didn't know what Dr. B was prescribing, and you had this slew of medication that the patient was taking that was contradicting one another, and a lot of the fatal illnesses that the elderly patient had came from the medication. Nobody was regulating it whatsoever. And it's pretty scary stuff, The bottom line, potassium is an essential mineral, an electrolyte that involved in heart function, muscle contraction, and water balance.
A high intake may help reduce high blood pressure, salt sensitivity, and the risk of stroke. Additionally, it may protect against osteoporosis and kidney stones.
So you might want to double think about going on Spiro. Despite its importance, very few people around the world get enough potassium. A healthy adult should aim for 3,500 to 4,700 milligrams daily from foods.
From foods. That's the main takeaway there. To increase your intake, incorporate a few potassium-rich foods into your diet, such as spinach, beet greens, potatoes, and fish, such as salmon.
Yes. I'm not a fan of salmon, but salmon does have a lot of great benefits. It's got one of the better ones for omega-3, I believe, and it's got potassium in there. So great article, guys. I mean, sincerely, your health is very important. I know that many of us look for vanity, but don't think that vanity that we're seeking could end up being our early grave.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but to be looking a certain way in your casket, You know, we've got to really learn how to walk that balance line and really take care of our physical health as well as our mental well-being. Right. So, what are 7 ways to improve your spiritual health? Now, there's a lot of people in the world that are religious. They follow a lot of dogma. We've been there, done that. You know, I don't find that that kind of really helps
Mm.
the inner core of the person.
No, I think,
Religiosity
yeah,
is not good.
it really becomes kind of toxic within
Extremely.
you because you feel that you need to, like, you know, perform to a certain level of acceptance of some inanimate God knows what.
Mhm.
Again, I say God knows what because I mean I was brought up believing in God, you
Right.
know. So it's that programming that
Exactly.
repeats itself within your mindset and it sets you up for failure. Really.
Very much so. And it sets you up for an imbalance within your spirituality, which is not to be confused religiosity. With religiosity. So, 7 ways to improve your spiritual health.
The spiritual element of wellness can be the most personal piece of the puzzle when trying to place all 8 dimensions of wellness together. Generally, people like to live a life with meaning and purpose. When these goals are met, it puts harmony in one's life and the others they surround themselves with.
So, what can you do to improve your spiritual wellness? Well, it's best to figure out what techniques work for you. Since spiritual wellness involves one's values, beliefs, and purpose, it can be achieved in several ways, both physically and mentally. And I think Terry joins us.
She says over medication is a terrible problem within our medical care system. A little off topic, but I took care of an elderly man
Mhm.
who was always cold. He was on 3 different blood thinners at the same time.
And that's very common because Dr. A doesn't know what Dr. B is doing, and the patient could be taking medication that's contradictory to the other medication, or they could be taking supplementation that interferes with the medication, or eating foods that are very damaging. Like, for instance, transgender females who are on spirulactones are supposed to stay away from bananas because it causes a massive reaction.
Right.
You know, do the doctors tell them that? No, they really
Of
don't.
course
You know,
not.
so
They won't.
yeah,
They do not want the health of the patient.
Right.
They want them. I mean, most of them are
well,
working for the system.
they don't.
right?
They in favor of doctors who go in thinking they're going to do something good, because I don't think anybody actually goes into medicine thinking, what way am I going to mess with people? I think they all go in, besides the money, which is not that great unless you're specialized, like if you're a surgeon or some sort of specialist, but they go in with the good intentions. But then what happens is the pharmaceutical companies take over and they provide them all sorts of benefits and gifts and things. And hey, here, the pharmaceutical rep comes in and
Right.
says, take this, that, and the other. And look, I'm not hating on the medical system or the drug companies. There are certain medications that people have to take for life or death. I always like to go with a natural approach if possible, but I know there are people that do need medication, but you got to be so very careful. That patient always has to have some sort of advocate, because if not, you could lose a loved one because
Right.
of inconsistency or oversight. They're very busy, they're overworked. And it's like you're just like another number.
I mean, when you do an appointment with, an endo or something like that, or a nurse practitioner when we're doing hormones and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
they only have a very limited amount of time on their hands.
Exactly.
And they just want to get right down to it, the bare facts,
Mhm.
and they don't have time to spend with you. So they're just quick to write things up and
Mm-hmm.
send you on your way, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, and there's not enough research on certain medications and the long-term effects of certain things. When you do get that kind of information, it's already tons of people have died, and they're like, "Oops, okay, we better take a look at this because we're going to get sued." So that's when they start doing more research and start to find things out. So, number 1, explore your spiritual core. By exploring your spiritual core, you're simply asking yourself questions about the person you are and your meaning. not the meaning of somebody else, but your meaning. Ask yourself, who am I?
What is my purpose? Why? What do I value most? These questions will lead you down a road where you will think more in depth about yourself and allow you to notice things about yourself, not others, not pointing fingers, that will help you achieve fulfillment.
Because we're different. No two people in this world are alike. So how can you follow a cookie cutter routine based on a book written by people eons ago? Spirituality is a very self journey. It's very individualized. You can't say, well, this says here on this quote and da da da, and this is how it's got to be. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. We want it. Many people want it to work that way. Simplification, but we're not simple beings.
I'd like to really compare this to the physical core that we have within us on our body. When people look to work on their physical core, everything else around their body becomes healthier, becomes more firm and able to function in the way that it's designed to do. The arm can be a better arm. The leg can be a better leg. So when people look into going into becoming aware of their spiritual core, that fulfills those other needs of making their body.
Exactly. You've got to take care. It's like when you're building a house, you've got to make sure that the foundation is good, because everything else that you put on there, if that foundation isn't solid, the house is going to fall down.
Right.
And you can't get a foundation from outside sources. It's got to be inward. The answers are within.
And it's got to take time. You have to set it right. You have to make sure it's level. You have to wait for it to dry out. You know, if people are pouring a concrete foundation or sticking footers into a building, you know, to make the foundation. So this takes time.
Yeah.
And building a foundation for yourself, a spiritual core for you, and exploring it, it takes time.
Yeah,
and a lot of people aren't willing to. And I would venture to say that, you know, these Abrahamic faiths, you know, like, you know, Christianity, the one I'm most familiar with, they do not allow you to build a foundation. They say your foundation is Christ.
Right.
Your foundation is found only outside of yourself. So,
and, you know, how can you build a house in a cookie cutter format when every human being has different needs? You might need a 4-bedroom house because you have 4 kids or 5 kids. You might need a house with a different type of design for your kitchen because you are a chef or because you have a handicap and you require certain modifications in your house. So the same concept goes for spirituality. No two people are alike. No two spirits are alike. You're here, each and every one of you, for a different reason. Think about that one. And number 2.
Look for deeper meanings. Looking for deeper meanings in your life and analyzing occurring patterns will help you see that you have control over your destiny. Being aware of this can help you achieve a happy and healthy life. It's you that have the reins to what happens in your future. It's not some, you know, being in the sky somewhere in some ethereal realm that has, well, God's ways are higher than mine. You know, it's like, no, your ways are your own, and you are responsible for plotting that way in that path, you know, walking in it.
And analyzing your mistakes, you know, seeing the pattern. It's like, okay, some of us, we like to hit our heads against that same wall. And it's like sometimes a little bleeding or scoffing to learn, well, I shouldn't keep making the same mistake again.
I mean, I have a friend, or used to be a friend, who we gave advice to. He had a really scary thing happen physically to him, and he had to go to emergency. And the doctor said, you are going to have to change your diet, you know. So it was his responsibility to do that. It was up to him. And I remember talking to his wife. You gave him some great advice about going on a juice fast at the time and resetting his taste buds in his body, and eat more fruits and vegetables and set the foundation back all right. But here we are. And he is looking to have a reversal colostomy surgery next February. So basically, he didn't do what he needed to do. And it's only him to blame for that, you know? Because People don't want to do the work. They don't want to really like pay the price to say, you know what, I'm going to get educated. I don't want to have colon cancer. So, I've had colon cancer in my family. My dad passed away in 2005 to colorectal cancer. I know personally that I do not want to get what he had. So I am doing things in order to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yes, and Becky joins us. Welcome, Becky. So, number 3, get it out. Expressing what is on your mind will help you to maintain a focused mind. After a long day or a significant event, you may feel confused and not be able to make sense of your feelings. By writing down your thoughts, you may be able to think clearer and move forward. Journaling is very important. You can go back a few days back and try to understand where your thought process is, why you're thinking the way that you're thinking. Why did you react the way that you react? What was going on in your heart and your mind at the time? Spirituality is really getting to know self.
Right.
Really getting to know who you are.
And like really being able to, in the moment, whenever the point of conflict arises, like that occasion at the gym the other day, you had one of two ways to react. You could have like instigated more and then caused a really big problem for both of you guys.
Right.
But instead, you thought in your head, wait a minute, cooler heads need to prevail here.
Right.
We need to think this through. And that's the thing. Through practice, we're able to get outside of the situation and to assess it while we're there. But if we're not that way and we're just reactive all the time, and we're just like, reptilian.
Yeah, reptilian action reaction type of thing. You need to step out of yourself and look at the situation like if you were an actor observing the play, because that's what this is, one big massive play. So you have to step out, analyze, think it through, think before you speak, because you can really open mouth, insert foot, and get yourself in lots and lots of trouble.
Okay, the fourth recommendation here is something that is so anti-Christian. When you say the word yoga, they think spiritual, demonic oppression or possession. And yoga is a physical technique that can help improve your spiritual wellness by reducing emotional and physical strains on your mind and body. What does spiritual wellness mean to you? Does it mean waking up at the crack of dawn and praying towards, a deity that you think exists, but really is just a waste of your breath?
Yeah. So yoga is taught at all different levels. You can help lower stress, boost the immune system, and lower blood pressure, as well as reduce anxiety, depression, fatigue, and insomnia.
Yoga is a good thing. Those who practice it find themselves being able to achieve a certain degree of peace in their lives and tranquility.
Any type of exercise, in my humble opinion, really will help you achieve that. Like, I love weight training. It really gets you to have this mind-body connection. You're becoming connected and feeling muscles you never thought you had before, And it's really helpful when you stretch, when you warm up before you're getting ready to do a deadlift or a pull-up or a squat or anything of that nature, where you're actually moving different body parts and different joints throughout space. It's an amazing thing. I've done yoga in the past. It's very difficult. I'm not flexible. Yoga is not my thing because of the lack of flexibility. But if you're a flexible person and you're able to really engage in it, it's wonderful.
Terry says, I wrote a book about finding your purpose by doing what brings you joy. It's called Goal Searching, Dreams to Reality Workbook.
Sounds like a very interesting book.
It does. Number 5 is to travel. It's true, taking time for yourself to travel to a comforting place or somewhere new can do wonders for your mind.
When you are at a place where your mind can keep out distractions and help you reflect and rest, you will have a better connection with yourself. I think all the traveling we've done, you and I, because we've done a lot of traveling. I mean,
we're all thinking about traveling again.
Has helped us immensely. I mean, I'm really over it. I mean, 55, it's like I just want to settle. And it's really sad that,
this can't be the place.
but because I'm tired. I know you are too, but traveling does. I mean, when we did that road trip on both
It wore us
occasions,
out.
it wore us out, but at the same time, it helped reflect. It really put a lot of things in perspective. So this allows you to weed out stressors and set your mind on the right path for overall wellness.
Some activities to take part in when on a trip can be exercising, as you spoke of,
Mhm.
speaking with a counselor or advisor, meditation, or taking a temporary vow of silence.
Number 6, think positively. I know it's hard in the days and age because everyone's always negative and fearful in the news and this and that and the other. Once you start viewing things in your life in a positive manner, you will find yourself thinking differently and refocusing your mind to be what? Happy, healthy, and vibrant. Let your mind go to a happy and healthy place. When you eliminate negativity and reframe how you think of certain things and situations, you'll notice yourself being a lot more relaxed.
Number 7, take time to meditate. While managing your time and daily tasks can be hard, it is crucial to devote time to connecting with God? No, yourself.
Whether in the morning, when you wake up, during your lunch break, or before you go to sleep, take 5 to 10 minutes to meditate each day. I like to do it not so much before I go to sleep, because I'm usually, when I start getting that twilight feeling, I'm like, I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
But when I wake up in the morning, instead of like, I'll sit there as I'm starting to get wide awake, and then I'll like try to go through the remembrance of what I dreamed the night, and just kind of like knowing, okay, I'm going to start my day breathing nice, and it's a good thing.
It is.
It is.
Fitting meditation and relaxation into your lifestyle will free your mind and foster a stronger relationship with your spiritual wellness.
Religiosity is not wellness by all means. It really, really hurts you. Hello there, Stargazer. Welcome. Welcome,
Yes.
welcome.
And Becky said a little prelude to our featured topic. From my perspective, a true narcissists are soulless and feed off of others' energy. Yeah.
Very true. To give a narcissist a little benefit of the doubt, I think a lot of people become narcissistic due to their upbringing. It's almost like a self-defense mechanism. And I think in today's society, we're seeing, that word thrown around like it's candy. It's like, and the true narcissist is not what we think, and that's what we're going to go into. But I think that there are people that, because of the way they were raised, it could be that they had a very strict parent or parents, or the other opposite end could be somebody that had been given everything and they were totally spoiled. So they think the world revolves around them. So we got different factors that will create this. Social media, all this selfie, all these stuff that people are like, look what I could do. Look at me. Look at me. People that weren't given enough attention growing up can tend to have narcissistic personality traits. And I truly believe that everybody on this planet has some sort of narcissistic traits. Are they truly narcissists? No. And this is what we're going to go into today's topic.
So Stargazer says, Lena looking beautiful, and Mark with that swag, man. Ed Bassmaster beard going on.
We keep forgetting
I know,
to
we keep
contact him, that Ed Master. Thank you.
If you know who it is, LOL. But on the note of narcissism, I have to say that word needs to be used carefully.
Exactly.
For today's media influences, maybe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, somebody said the other day, and I forgot who it was, that I should look into Ed Master and do like a little look-alike type of thing. Remind me. I need to look at. Yeah.
I will.
So, as the article says, meet the real narcissists. They're not what you think. The label is everywhere, but it's widely misused to describe anyone who offends us, and that is like typical.
Oh, wow.
Many of our haters, that's all they call us. They call us narcissists. The truth, a little narcissism is good for you. All right. So even for those high in the trait, it's not all about vanity. New research may be uncovering a connection to depression, as I mentioned earlier, to give the narcissist the benefit of the doubt. It's almost like a self-defense mechanism.
Right.
That most people, maybe not knowing they're doing this, inadvertently become narcissists because of their upbringing, PTSD, and things of that nature.
Becky says, we all have narcissistic traits, as you say. I am commenting on a true narcissist.
And that's what we're going to go into, really explaining to the viewers and to those haters that are throwing their word around. And it's usually people that just don't like you will throw that word around and call everybody and their mother a narcissist. And Stargazer says, someone else told you about him. By the way, I used to love the Kardashians. Silly me.
I see the truth now.
Yeah.
The Kardashians, wow.
Wow. Yeah.
They pulled one over on America.
They sure did.
And laughing all the way to the bank.
Of course.
Or their Swiss banks.
Swiss banks.
Last winter, a friend told me she was considering a divorce. I really think my husband is a narcissist, she said. More recently, over brunch, an acquaintance explained this family dynamics. My aunt is such a narcissist. We're not sure why my uncle is with her.
And when you and I were in our war stage, I called you a narcissist. You called me a narcissist. We're like, oh, she's calling me a narcissist. She's the biggest narcissist of all. And then everybody else that, my haters will call you narcissist.
And we were following this other person, on YouTube and used to chat with their people and everything. Yeah. There was this woman that we met from Great Britain, and she said, oh, this guy, he is a classic narcissist. Let me send you an article. She said she was married to a narcissist. So people think they know what a narcissist really is, but they throw the term around like love.
Yeah.
They throw it around like love.
Well, like like they know what they're talking about. Like, where's your degree in psychology? Okay, because it's a term that really doesn't mean what you think it means. So
Becky said, I dated a true narcissist for over a year and a half. He drained my energy until I had enough.
It's really rough to live with a true narcissist. Because, everybody, especially trans people, and to give benefit of the doubt, when we first start transitioning, we think the world revolves around us. Everything is us, me, look what I can do. And, it's almost like there is a little child inside our head that doesn't realize that the world doesn't just revolve around us. There's other people. And children have the very narcissistic way of living, because it's all about, you take a 2-year-old, it's like, mine.
We were listening to a person this morning that lives in the area that we even had on our show at one point, talking about spiritual things and stuff. And they were just on a rant, and they were talking about how the world owes them, and how if they're gonna have a boyfriend, he's gonna have to buy them all these pearls and jewels and Prada and all this, this and that and the other. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's all about them. It's all about what they can do for them. And if they don't, meet that requirement, then off with them and stuff. It's crazy.
And let's say, have you noticed girls now think it's cute to act dumb and bitchy? It's incredibly ugly behavior. It is. And I noticed that, and I said, when we watch these individuals, like, that behavior is a very common behavior.
It is.
In today's world. The thing is like being bratty and giving everything's what I want and what I need. And they think it's cute. And it's really ugly, as you said.
So Terry says, me too, Becky. And Becky says, he was so charming at first. And wow, it was freaking awesome. But it wasn't real.
Stargazer says, happy you admit some trans people are selfish. At least you both have honesty in mind. And it is, it's like anybody that's been hurt, traumatized, in today's climate, they're going to act out. They're going to think, I deserve this. I, me. But it's the climate we're living. People don't think what they could do for others. It's always, what can you do for me?
Well, there's this generation that is born into entitlement. There was Kelly Clarkson mentioned that her son or something, was going through some things, and she's like, "Oh, so are you?
Oh, poor you!
You poor rich little, child
living in this
mansion. Is this mansion just too big for you? Is it just so depressing to have everything you've ever wanted?"
And that's the problem.
Is that what we want to do? I mean, as a parent, in the past, I always wanted to give my kids the best, But sometimes the best was withholding
Yes.
things. The best
Exactly.
was presenting them with opportunities to be better people,
Right. To
rather
be
than get
inventive.
things.
Inventive. Like not just give, everything that you need. Like be a little inventive. Like my island Cuba, cars are still stuck in the 50s. There's no rechargeable lighters. My people learn how to make the 50s car work, and they learn how to make Bix throwaway lighters into rechargeable ones. Because what's that saying? Necessity is the mother of all inventions. And Terry says everyone goes through a me stage. Some never grow out of it. Very true. Very
And that's
true.
the problem. When a child is given everything
Mm-hmm.
that they ever want,
Mm-hmm.
and the parent thinks that that's the best way to raise the child is to give them whatever they're crying about, from the time that they get the bottle to the time that they get that new car from high school. It's like this sense of entitlement. So then they think that they own the world, literally.
And Brianna joined us, but she retracted her message.
She said, "Bring out the DSM, please." I think she said that.
So, and I studied that book from beginning to end. One of the teachers in my occupational therapy curriculum thought that it was so important for us to memorize the book. And I'm like, lady, if we need it, all we have to do. But no, we had to memorize it.
But it's a code book for, giving analysis.
So that could be reimbursement. Reimbursed. And Becky says, I choose to put up with this crap because I thought I couldn't get better until a voice in my head said, I'm sure
something just isn't right. I listen carefully. I listen finally. Stargazer.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have bulked up, Mark.
Yeah, only in.
Or it's that jumper? LOL.
No, it's
jumper.
Yeah,
jumper.
Yeah, I've put on
good, both of you.
Probably like almost 10 pounds. And I'm really training hard.
He's really eating
a lot of protein.
A lot.
Yeah.
Firmer these days.
It doesn't take. I'm a shapeshifter. We go very quickly. And Stargazer says, "On my request, a stream topic. Sorry if it's rude to ask. Just curious." No, you can. Obviously, we love to be of service, and we always welcome.
Yeah, we love researching topics that our viewers want to know more information about. So yeah, whatever you
want, please.
Whatever you want, we'll do some research and talk about it.
Definitely will.
And Becky says, "And the day I chose my freedom was freaking awesome."
I'm sure. Freedom feels good. So I don't know if it's your turn or my turn. I forgot.
Go ahead.
The term narcissist has been widely deployed to describe not only a panzel of difficult relatives and regretted exes, but also both nominees for president and the entire generation known as millennials. Is narcissism really so widespread or on the rise in the general population?
A growing consensus among psychologists says no, it isn't. True pathological narcissism has always been rare and remains so. It affects an estimated 1% of the population, and that prevalence hasn't changed demonstrably since clinicians started measuring it. Most but not all putative narcissists today are innocent victims of an overused label.
And, like they said, disgruntled exes and people that are upset, because you hear that word a lot. Everyone either claims their ex was a narcissist, not saying Becky or Terry that your exes weren't, but people throw that around because it's like when relationships fail, we never want to admit that we might have part of that failure, and it's always someone else's fault. And again, I'm not downplaying anything, but if it's only 1% of the population and it's very rare,
it seems like, if you're a person who can say, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake," at any point during, the problems that you're experiencing or things that you're doing,
mm-hmm.
then you're not a narcissist, because a true narcissist has no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
A true narcissist is so psychologically warped in their mind that they think
mm-hmm.
that everything that they say and do is the right thing, and they will never apologize.
No.
Never.
They have a hard time with that. And Stargazer says,
"I'd love to hear your thoughts on YouTube's new rules and crackdown. You should start a podcast on SoundCloud."
Yeah, we just had to do some sort of, is your channel geared towards children or something like that, and they have these new regulations and stuff like that. It's it's the world we're living in. Censorship is something that is really really real, you know?
Yeah, they said that they were going to start pulling channels for commercially viable
Mhm.
to YouTube.
Yeah. In other words, if they can't advertise, then you're not any good to them. When I started YouTube back in 2006, you know, things were very different. YouTube kind of kissed our, you know, where, because they wanted creators, because without creators, they're nobody. I mean, they can't advertise unless it's through us with our material. But if our material is not advertisable, then we're not good to them. So that's what they're kind of doing. They're weaning things out so that they could probably increase their advertising rates and have prime creators creating things.
Millennials and Gen Z are lost souls, sad future the way they think.
Very true.
I think, you know, I wanted to add to that is that I've had personal experience with that generation, and just given the fact that when I was growing up, there was this sense of respect that, you know, people that were older than you, your parents, your scout leader, you know, I mean, different people, the policeman, teachers, they demanded respect, and you gave it to them because you were taught to respect people. And it seems like this younger generation, those rules are completely out the door. I mean, they will talk without any kind of regard to your understanding of how the world works, you know, and your own, you know, lived experiences and stuff like that. So I really do think that it's a dangerous world, you know, with regards to this younger generation, because they're not being taught to have a filter. You know, it's like they grow up in this whole YouTube and social media IG generation, and they think they can say, like we noticed, you know,
keyboard
they can type
words,
on.
Keyboard words. So 1% of the population, okay, not a whole lot of people, and the prevalence hasn't changed, you know, according to the way the clinicians are measuring it. But most, but not all, putative narcissists today are innocent victims of overuse label, and that's just what they are: normal individuals with healthy egos who may also happen to indulge in the occasional selfie and talk about their accomplishments.
They may even be a bit vain, but while we're just diagnosing friends, relatives, and our kids' classmates, true pathological narcissists may be evading detection, because most of us don't even understand the many forms the condition may take.
And that's the key, that most people do not understand. The word narcissism is being thrown around, overly used, you know, and people are taking the role of psychologists and trying to throw that word out there. So what narcissism is and what it is not. Narcissism is a trait each of us exhibit to a greater or lesser degree. As it becomes trait non grata, though, it becomes necessary to add the qualifier healthy to specify the socially acceptable type of narcissism.
So we had Terry say 1% of 7 billion people is still a lot of narcissism out there.
Yeah, but not as much as people throw it out, you know. One of the reasons we thought this article was important, because we've been called narcissists left, right, and center, and by our friends, family, and viewers and things of that nature. Usually when you don't give people what they want, whether it's in a relationship or in a friendship, and you stop meeting those demands that people have of you, then all of a sudden people throw that word at you, you know?
So Stargazer says, you were one of the original creators and only have 5K subs. You deserve at least 10 times more.
Oh yeah. One of the things I've noticed with YouTube, when I started my channel, trans wasn't very popular. So they kind of kept, you know, they do something with the algorithms, and they do something to like play with the subscriptions and stuff like that. And
the way, you know, YouTube works is, you know, people literally buy subscribers, they buy viewership. And it's not that these people are literally
having people subscribing. Yeah,
it's like this thing that goes on where people can purchase more subscribers. So if you see a channel that goes from, you know, 5 to 15,000 in less than 3 months,
or even higher than that,
or 5 to 50,000. I mean, it's usually because they were able to cash in on some,
Yeah.
service
Yep.
that they're providing.
Facebook does the same thing. They
They
promote,
suppress things,
yeah,
and
and they say promote your blah 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 by paying such and such. Get more likes, get more of this. You're paying for it. So kids today, for some reason, film cops and talk down to them like they're doing something useful, but they aren't. It's just for likes and shares. Disrespect. Totally.
It is. It really is. And Terry says narcissism is the new N word.
That is true. That is true. I think we are.
It is the capacity to see ourselves and others through rose-colored glasses, says psychologist Craig Malkin, lecturer at Harvard Medical School and the author of Rethinking Narcissism. That can be beneficial because it is helpful for all of us to feel a bit special.
Mm-hmm.
It fuels the confidence that allows us to take risks, like seeking a promotion or asking out an attractive stranger. But feeling too special can cause problems.
The Narcissist Personality Inventory, or known as NPI, is the most commonly used measure of that trait, developed by Robert Raskin and Calvin S. Hall in 1979. It asks an individual to choose between pairs of statements that assess levels of modesty, assertiveness, inclination to lead, and willingness to manipulate others.
Scores range from 0 to 40, with the average tending to fall in the low to mid-teens, depending on the group being tested. Those whose score is a standard deviation above that of their peers could reasonably be called narcissists, but a score anywhere along a wide range of the scale might still indicate a fundamentally healthy personality.
A diagnosis of pathological narcissism, which is a mental health disorder, involves different criteria. Narcissistic personality disorder is an extreme manifestation of the trait, says developmental psychologist Eddie Brumman, a fellow at Stanford University. The disorder can be diagnosed only by a mental professional and is suspected when a person's narcissist traits impair his or her daily functioning.
The dysfunction might be related to identity or self-direction or cause friction in relationships due to problems with empathy and intimacy. It might also arise from pathological antagonism characterized by grandiosity and attention seeking.
Narcissism is a continuum, and the disorder sits at the very end. Bromlin says the NPI can detect a person's level of narcissism, but additional real-life effects are necessary for a diagnosis of NPD.
A personality disorder is a pervasive disturbance in a person's ability to manage his or her emotions, hold on to a stable sense of self and identity, and maintain healthy relationships in work, friendship, and love, Malkin says. It's a matter of rigidity.
Someone who scores high on the NPI may indeed encounter occasional awkward or stressful social interactions. But for someone with NPD, Malkin says all the psychological defenses are working against healthy functioning all the time.
All the time. That's the key.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
there isn't an instance where it's not.
Exactly.
So the many faces of narcissism. Popular culture has long relied on narcissistic traits to sketch problematic characters in sharp relief. From Dorian Gray to Don Draper, Gaston from Disney's Beauty and the Beast presents a silly but fairly apt model of grandiosity, probably the most recognizable feature of people high in narcissism and those with NPD.
The brawny braggart sings, as a specimen, yes, I'm intimidating. As you see, I've got biceps to spare. I'm especially good at expectorating, and every last inch of me is covered in hair. Other narcissists may indeed perceive themselves as being in the top 1% in terms of talent, appearance, success, or all of the above.
But it's a mistake to assume that all narcissists will be such obvious preeners. Not all narcissists care about looks or fame or money, Malkin says. If you focus too much on this stereotype, you will miss red flags that have nothing to do with vanity or greed.
Let's see what we got here.
Sorry to go off topic, says Stargazer, but maybe you both can help. What are the best foods to avoid for sensitive red facial skin? My brother got hot and irritated.
Oh, I got to get on that.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, because that's really going to throw us off. What are, let me see.
Some foods to avoid inflammation, right?
Well, there's a lot of foods that actually create inflammation. There's the slew. I mean, we could do a show on that in particular, but this is very person specific, because if he's allergic to certain things that is creating the inflammation response, what could be an inflammatory response for one person may not be an inflammatory response for another. Something as simple as even a fruit could create, you could be allergic to cherries and it'll create that kind of inflammatory response for him. The best way to know something like that, you need to literally go into a doctor who does testing on certain foods and certain things that create inflammation. So, yeah, I'm like trying to kids did. Okay, no, I'm just trying to see what isn't. He's probably got. I mean, facial redness. There's a lot of different. What's that called? I had a girlfriend who had that too. Rosacea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like the same concept as when you get what's that thing in the skin called when you get eczema and there's another one, psoriasis. It's the body attacks itself, and it could be an over stimulation of certain food added on throughout, and it could have been triggered by some sort of stress. So, that's.
But it depends on, how old is he? It could be a hormonal thing.
Yeah, it's like that's a very general question without really knowing specific. But my best advice is to either go to an allergist that will actually test. Another thing that I would do with my clients if they had a food allergy for something is I would have them go on a fast, let the body clean out, because sometimes you're overly saturated with certain foods that remain in your colon, within the crevices, and then the body starts to attack itself with foods that are similar. Could be gluten, could be wheat. There's so many foods that cause inflammation. For some people, it could be meat. For other people, it could be some sort of grain. It's, very general.
Right. He's 24.
He's 24. And has he always had this condition, or is it something that just started? Because, it could be some supplement that he's introduced and new foods, or maybe he's eating too much of the same thing over and over again and the body's become allergic to it. It could be something he's wearing. It could be a cologne. It could be material that he's wearing. There's so many different things and so many different factors. All right. So
and there are highly introverted
or vulnerable narcissists. These individuals feel they are more temperamentally sensitive than others. They react poorly to even gentle criticism and need constant reassurance. The way they feel special might actually be negative. They may see themselves as the ugliest person at the party or feel like a misunderstood genius in a world that refuses to recognize their gift. And that's very true here. There are people that can't take criticism whatsoever and become, a bit like overly defensive and stuff like that. But again, that also stems from childhood. If when you were growing up, like in my case, I was being scorned and told how awful I was. I couldn't do the dishes right. Nothing I did was ever right. So you get to the point where you're so belittled and so shamed and so beat over the head that anything anybody tells you is like, and then brings back those memories, and it triggers. And these are things that we need to learn to work through. These triggers that came from childhood, are they interfering in our everyday life and our relationships?
So what all subtypes of narcissists have in common? Malkin says is self-enhancement. Their thoughts, behaviors, and statements set them apart from others. And this feeling of distinction soothes them because they're otherwise struggling with an unstable sense of self.
And we see that a lot, in individuals that have been shamed, have been bullied. What comes to mind is individuals in the LGBT community. We've been shamed, we've been bullied, not only by our own parents, but by our peers and siblings and friends and family. So that kind of can lead to narcissistic personality types, in many people.
Narcissists feel superior to others, Brummelman says, but they are not necessarily satisfied with themselves as a person.
And that's the key there. There's a link to depression. Do we have anything?
No,
he's doing this. Okay.
Just gave us more details.
Okay, so a link to depression. The struggle is at the core of a new conception of narcissism, one focused as much on depression as on grandiosity. What people hypothesize is that narcissists are prone to higher heights and lower lows. It's pretty much like bipolar in itself. There's a lot of people that are diagnosed with bipolar condition might tend to have, some form of narcissist behavior.
They have this constant need to have their greatness verified by the world around them.
Mm-hmm.
When reality catches up with them, they may react by becoming depressed.
Yes, because they're not meeting up to their own expectations and to the expectations of the world around them. Rejection, when people reject them, it sets them off in a certain way. When a clear setback, such as a job loss or divorce, or even a plan being scuttled, dents the carefully burnished self-image of a narcissist individual, this is a real attack on who he is, says Stephen Huppridge, the president-elect of the International Society of Study of Personality Disorders and a professor at the University of Detroit Mercy.
Somebody he thought was going to trust him now very much dislikes him and is unwilling to put up with him anymore. Not surprisingly, he finds himself a little more down and depressed.
Of course, even people with healthy mental states struggle to deal with such dramatic turnarounds, Hubbard says, but for narcissists and narcissistic personalities, loss is really very difficult because it suggests vulnerability and weakness. It suggests that you actually aren't immune to life's challenges and its ups and downs.
The narcissist might also exhibit defensiveness and anger at such moments. When they don't get the admiration they crave, they feel ashamed and lash out aggressively. Brummelman says others are unlikely to have the same sort of aggressive outbursts.
So he said, since like 18, I think is cheeks and nose. Thanks. Oh, it's hormonal right there, because usually that's the key. It's probably some people get acne, and some people might get some sort of reaction like rosacea. So maybe he needs to do like a hormonal profile and find out if he's, allergic to anything in particular. It's really hard to just kind of but the best thing to do, on the holistic level is a lot of water, probably eliminate certain foods for a while and then reintroduce them and see what actually creates the reaction.
So Brianna says, why do you think it's food related?
Well, because food, anything you put in your body's going to react to. Your body could create an allergen to whatever it is that you're eating. It could be gluten, it could be wheat, it could be fruit, it could be sugars, it could be all sorts of different things. But a lot of times it can be food related or it can be hormonally related, and a lot of times it could also be emotionally related. It's one of those things you have to process of elimination. So, is it my turn?
Yeah.
When a disappointment cuts through narcissists' thick layer of grandiosity and self-promotion and breaches their core, the resulting melancholy or boiling rage might motivate them to seek outside help. The Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, otherwise known as DSM-5, in fact, advises clinicians that individuals with NPD may present with a depressed mood.
They rarely, however, come in seeking treatment for their narcissism. I've never heard anyone say, I think I'm a narcissistic personality, Hubbard says.
That doesn't mean narcissists are oblivious to their trait. A 2011 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology titled With a Wink, You Probably Think This Paper's About You, reported that narcissists did have insight into their personality.
You're so vain.
Right?
You probably think, what is it?
That song was probably written for a narcissist. Yep.
They described themselves as arrogant and knew that others saw them less positively than they saw themselves. But they generally didn't see this as a problem. And the debate continues over whether their grandiosity reflects an ironclad belief in their superiority or masks an underlying absence of self-confidence.
And a lot of it is the key word there is self-confidence. That's what I mentioned earlier. They're byproduct of their environment, byproduct of their insecurities, lack of self-confidence, so forth and so on. So over years of research, Hubbard and colleagues have developed a concept that may be related to narcissism. They call it malignant self-regard. It's a potential explanation for a constellation of not quite clinically diagnosable personality disorders with overlapping features, including depressive, self-defeating, and masochistic personality styles. People that tend to like self-sabotage themselves, friendships, everything. It's like they just mess everything up in life.
We find this a lot in the trans community.
Yes, yes.
It's a very common thing to see.
It is, and again, it's the low self-esteem. It's a coping mechanism. People look at it as something so negative, and don't get me wrong, there are narcissistic people, like the Bates Motel guy comes to mind, where he becomes his mother and he starts killing people. And not to say that all narcissists are serial killers or anything like that, but the hurt is so bad that when you injure a narcissist and their ego gets hurt and their person gets hurt, it's just all hell breaks loose.
Right.
It's like, what's gonna happen? That kind of thing.
So Tracy joins us from Minnesota.
Hey,
Greetings
Tracy.
from Minnesota. And she says, fantastic sweater.
Classic. Yes, very pretty sweater.
So where?
Listen, is it my turn or your turn?
It's my turn.
Applied
Applied more widely to narcissistic subtypes, the theory suggests that deep-seated insecurity about the self and an exceedingly fragile sense of self-esteem can lead to maladaptive thoughts and behavior. Extroverted narcissists exhibit grandiose attention-seeking. Vulnerable narcissists, meanwhile, simply succumb to their damaged self-image.
And like you said, we see this a lot, in individuals who've had to like really fight for who they are. And from the moment they're little, they've, it's like they didn't like how they looked, and they're constantly, trying to reinvent and stuff like that. And there is a lot of traits, but that's the 21st century.
Right.
Because we're constantly watching TV and seeing how beautiful people are, and we want to match that, and everything becomes about our looks because we were made fun of our looks. And it's like, it's a coping mechanism, so you really have to, I hate to say this, you have to feel sorry for a lot of the people that do exhibit these traits.
Burn Takara says, can you end up feeling like a narcissist when trying to deal with perceived narcissists? How does the judgment get made?
It's very difficult. Like we mentioned earlier, you really need a clinician to actually diagnose that, but you can, because one of the things narcissists are really good at doing is to turn things around and project it and make you feel like you're the problem. And at the end, you start to believe that you are the problem, but you're really not. It's just, they're good at that. They're good at manipulating. They're good at lying. They're good at throwing things around. They're good at, because they've had to do that all their life, to build themselves up. So, what was that? They're not able. Okay, they're not able to keep a coherent sense of who they are. So when they're attacked, instead of fighting back, which is the first reaction of the grandiose narcissist, because there are different types, they have an immediate reaction of sadness and depletion and depression.
People may develop malignant self-regard as children in the context of their relationships, Hubbard proposes. These individuals may have had inconsistent experiences with their parents, related in particular to how success and achievement were recognized. Parents might have refused to acknowledge achievements or discouraged bragging about them, taking away the rose-colored glasses of healthy narcissism that could have eased the way as a child encountered new challenges in life.
And that's why I say parents are very much responsible for our ill behaviors later on in life. They may not do it on purpose, but, that really, really plays a major role.
You have these examples of just regular living, a child doesn't get, an attaboy, attagirl for doing a certain thing, and doing it well. And then they just feel underappreciated or not seen.
Exactly. So there's a right and wrong way to be, ? Labels get used as a personal sense of status and achievement to defend a perceived status. Well, according to this article that we're reading, the word gets thrown around a lot. And there's there's personality types, and there's like in this day and age, the 21st century, people are all into the selfies and look what I can do and things of that nature. So I don't believe there's a wrong way or a right way to be. That's, I think that there's different ways of skinning a cat. We live in a community or in a society that has rules and regulations, and some things are perceived like a no-go and some things are perceived as socially acceptable. Labels get used as well. Yeah, it's true. And that's what, we have, books like the DSM, and then we've got books like the Bible that try to like tell people how to live their lives and how to be. And if you're not this way, then you're bad, you're sinful, you're evil. And so I think we're fighting, this is century long fighting to try to like raise your head above water, to try to feel some sense of being okay, because we're told we're not okay from a very young age. So,
But we're reading an article, and this is a particular opinion, from the writer of this article.
Right.
And, the statement that they made was that true narcissism cannot be diagnosed by a layperson, that
Right.
it can only be diagnosed by a mental health professional.
Right.
And I would say that I would agree with that.
Right,
I would think that, just like the word love I mentioned earlier is thrown around as this like catch-all, be fun, happy word and stuff. This term narcissism is thrown at anybody who doesn't fit your mold.
Right. And in the beginning of the article, it talked about that's usually thrown around by exes that are unhappy. People that break up, they call each other narcissists. If you have a friend who no longer your friend anymore, you got into a massive fight, you got to call your friend a narcissist, because we're always trying to point fingers at others, and that makes us feel better. People that want us to fit in their little box, but we don't fit in their little box, are going to throw some sort of label at you.
And what does a diagnosis of a person perceiving a person as being a narcissist, what does that do for you? How does that make your life any better? How does that benefit your life? To call someone out like that? A person with a clinical issue, with a mental health disorder, needs help.
Right.
Really.
Not criticism. So are they made or are they born? According to this article, childhood experiences may play a major role, but most experts agree that both high levels of trait narcissism and NPD arise from the combined influence of nature and nurture that likely begins in the genes. So it's not always mama and daddy's fault. It's like sometimes, like the movie Damien or whatever, sometimes there are bad seeds.
There are personality traits we come into the world with, says Kaylee Srezniewski, a social development psychologist at the University of California, Davis. One environment can either weaken or strengthen those traits. Though there are always people who don't seem to react to their environment, they're just kind of resilient to it.
Yes, judgment is horrible and it can be horrific. But at the same time, judgment could also be a good thing. We need to like judge, if I drive my car too fast, I might hit the car in front of me. So I have to judge the distance between my car and the car ahead of me. I also have to judge, am I able to carry all the grocery bags in my hand, or is that going to be too, with both arms, or is it going to be too heavy? Am I going to hurt my back? When you judge maliciously to hurt someone or to make yourself better than that person that you're judging, that's kind of being an a-hole in my humble opinion. But, we can't throw like all absolute. Judgment is horrible. It can be, but it could be a good thing too. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. Judgment is a measuring tool. And, you can measure out whether you want to engage in a relationship with a certain person based on how you perceive them. And if it doesn't fit what you want for yourself, why bother going into it?
Exactly. You have to judge that, because if we did everything just without measuring, without analyzing, without reflecting, we could get ourselves into a lot of trouble. But that's,
and we'll make mistakes. People
yeah.
do make mistakes. Just because you judge doesn't mean you're judging rightly.
Right.
And when you think judgment, you don't want to think of it in the terms of like calling someone out,
Right.
making an
yeah.
example of them. You're just talking about measuring
Right.
whether it's safe to cross the street if there's a car coming.
Right. And this article, in my opinion, is a very good article because the word narcissist is thrown around like candy. Everyone, according to everyone's got narcissistic personality traits. And the article, if you listen to the beginning, I don't know if you just tuned in, we have touched a lot of really important points that explains what the article is trying to say. One twin study found that narcissism was a highly irritable trait. It can
heritable.
Wow,
so you can
inherit
it.
Yeah, it can also manifest early in life. Another study found that dramatic, aggressive, attention-seeking preschoolers were more likely to end up as narcissistic adults. Many times you see people, because I have an empathic way of like kind of knowing characters, and you look at a person. We've got several people like that in the gym, and I'm like, oh boy, they must have been a real winner when they were kids.
Yeah.
It's like, look at me, constantly seeking attention, and they never outgrow it.
Right.
But
parenting styles, the influence of other relationships, and one's social and cultural environments can encourage or deter its development.
Yeah, so culture matters as well. Lifetime rates of NPD are about 4 times higher in notoriously competitive New York when compared with Iowa. I could see that because New Yorkers have a really strong personality. They're like, they don't take anything from anybody.
Well, I believe they live in the center of the
universe. And but across the globe, cultures with a more collectivist tradition tend to put the group before the individual.
You are taught from a very early age that you have to pay attention to other people and put their needs before your own, says David Ludden, a professor of psychology at Georgia Gwinnett College in Lawrenceville, Georgia.
That's very true. Wherever you are, if you're like, there's certain races or certain cultures that teach you, they teach you manners. They teach you not to like think of yourself first. Like you go to other countries versus the kids here in the United States, they have a team approach. You're like, oh, you go first. And here it's like, no, the competitive nature that we're taught from a very young age here in this country.
Of course, there are narcissists in Japan and China as well, but they don't show up quite the same way as here, where we say, hey, it's okay for you to promote yourself.
Or it's okay for you to be competitive and for you to like want to win at all costs at the top. This culture here really does
breeds narcissism.
High narcissism is not the same as high self-esteem. There's nothing wrong with having high self-esteem, knowing that, hey, you're good at what you do. You maybe pat yourself on your back because maybe no one else has done that before. So that's your coping mechanism. So it's not the same thing. They're typically only weakly related, says Bromland, who has studied how parenting approaches can foster each.
He and his colleagues found that when mothers and fathers are warm and affectionate, spending time with their kids and showing interest in their activities, the children gradually internalize the belief that they are worthy individuals, the very core of self-esteem. And this doesn't spill over into narcissism, he says. By contrast, though, parental overvaluation, placing children on a pedestal, does promote narcissistic traits. To avoid raising narcissists, it is better for parents to say no, for parents to say to children, you did a good job, rather than you deserved to win, or why weren't you as good as she was?
Exactly. So those that weren't given the praise tend to be not so much narcissistic, but those that were constantly put on pedestal tend to end up being more narcissistic.
Tracy asks, do you think that when parents tell a child they are the best, the most talented, beautiful, etc., and they are not, this sets them up for this condition?
Yeah, and that's exactly what the article is saying, that, parents that overly promote their children as being like, you're the greatest, and you came to this world to be king of the world and whatever else.
Well, Brianna disagrees, though. She says, no, Tracy, those are statements of affirmation to build self-esteem.
There's a difference. So there's a fine balance between, like the article said here, you did a good job. right? Versus
You're the best.
you're the
person.
best. You deserve to win. There's a fine line between patting your child on the back and telling them, "Hey, sweetie, you did great. I'm really proud of you," than to making the child believe that they're the center of the universe.
Or because I mean, or making them feel like the only way to be a winner is to be at the top.
Exactly.
You know, there was a thing we heard today. That bodybuilder that we were listening to, that Greg Doucette guy, he said, you know, I know I'm not going to win, but I get to be the best that I can be. I know.
Yeah.
And, you know, when 200 competitors line up at the starting line for the Tour de France, there's only 3 or 4 guys that know that they have even a chance to make it through, to win the whole thing. But it's those that compete, the other like 196 that are there not to win, but to be their best. Right. And if their best is to be the winner, then that's great. But their best is to be the best that they can be. And when a parent tells a child that they can be the best, you know, above the rest, I think that's setting the child up for narcissism.
Right, and that's what the article is actually talking about. If you, you know, if you're placing this child on a pedestal, that promotes narcissistic traits.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I saw it before, you know, kids would be competing and then the dads would be in the crowd and the moms would be in the crowd. They'd be like, you're the best one on the court. Don't let them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
the parents are so annoying.
Gets this big head, like he's or she's like the greatest gift to the team.
Yeah.
And then they develop this diva mentality. Yeah.
I mean, it's good to
it's not good.
Uplift your children and get them that a boy, that a girl, and be loving and understanding parents, but don't put them on a pedestal, because then, you know, they think they're the only ones that matter, and then everybody else is, you know. An early pronounced focus on success can lead to an insecure attachment between parents and child. As a son or daughter learns that a mother or father's love and attentions are available only if high expectations are met. That was a major thing with me growing up, because my mother was very difficult to please, and so was my father. And it was always you know, it's like, yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, there was this girl on the basketball team in junior high that, you know, her dad was constantly like, she was taller than the other girls, so the dad had expectations for her to dominate on the court and stuff. And when she didn't, the dad would yell out, do what I told you in practice at home. You're not execute. It was like, oh my gosh. It's like, it's so unnecessary to be like a side, like a courtside coach.
It makes people grow up thinking that everything has to be perfect. And if everything's not perfect, then it's, you know, the world falls apart. And we're seeing a lot of that. There's a lot of perfectionism, you know, and it's like, things don't have to be perfect, you know. And when you raise a child with those kind of expectations, they continue to have those traits as adults. And that's when you run in danger of being a narcissist. I mean, because you know, the world just revolves, you know, around you and how you feel and think.
It's like, did you give it your all? Did you try? Did you leave it all out there? Did you give it 100%? I mean, that's what should be told to the child. You know, give it your all. Do as best as you can. Get better, you know, by practicing more, you know. But children who feel they can never measure up can move into adulthood with a fragile ego and latch on to narcissistic thoughts and behaviors to shore it up.
Parents who raise narcissists, Lynn says, present to their kids a world where everything is a competition. There are winners and losers, and you've got to be a winner. A healthier approach would be to teach children that they don't have to be the best, just the best that they can be.
Yeah,
and that's very healthy right there. And thank you, Phoebes, for joining us. Phoebes C.
And Black Joe says, haha, my mom versus the school system. No matter how hard parents try to steer children away from all or nothing competition, many eventually have to vie for college admission, internships, and jobs. Shrinking opportunities may be what's contributing to a perception of raging narcissism among young adults.
Well, what happens is, look, the work field this day and age, it's not the same thing as the work field 20 years ago. Corporations don't really care for their employee. You're like a number, and so it's like everyone, there was a point in life where people would just get an associate's degree. And then the associate degree wasn't enough, and you had a bachelor's. Well, now bachelor's not enough. You have to have your master's. Your master's not enough. Now you have to have your PhD. So you've got this overinflated people with all this diplomas and all these different degrees and stuff. And there's just such an overflux of it that,
Yeah.
everybody, it's crazy. So when you set up highly competitive environment, you're really encouraging people who are more ruthless. Lynn says that's where the narcissists are going to flourish, because they're willing to do more to get ahead than the average person would.
We've set up a society that encourages the narcissist as opposed to one where that kind of behavior is discouraged.
And so young people polish their resumes, update their LinkedIn profiles, brand themselves online, and of course, flood social media with carefully posed, cropped, and filtered selfies. We have a lot more opportunity to express our narcissist tendencies than we once did, Loon says. I mean, you got all these filters in the camera, and everybody's always trying to make their pictures look perfect. And, and it's like, that perfection does not exist.
Many young people who might have come across as quite modest in another time or milieu may just be trying to keep up and may deserve more of a pass for it.
Our norms have changed. Tinesqui, that's
Srzewski.
If you took somebody from the 60s and put them in today's society, would they look any different? I think so. I would argue that they would be the same. A better question, she suggests, is why is there such a huge trend to be negative about the next generation? This tendency goes back to the time of Socrates. She argues older generations get fearful when younger ones are doing things they don't fully understand.
The question of whether narcissism, the trait or the disorder, is on the rise is a subject of fierce debate in the research community. For example, while NPI scores have risen across the generations, they have not done so as much as might be expected if a major cultural shift had taken place.
Experts, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Experts also disagree on whether it's fair to make cross-generational comparisons. Would the greatest generation have become as notable for its reticence of soldiers had been able to tweet from the Europeans or Pacific theaters?
What is clear is that people are always more narcissistic when they're younger. Everyone is more narcissistic at 18, 19, or 20 than they are at 40, Srzewski says.
It's a logical developmental trend. Young adults is a time when people are largely free of responsibilities, either to their family or of origin or the family they will eventually establish.
It's a self-absorbed stage of life when you're trying to figure out who you are personally and professionally, says Emily Bianchi, an assistant professor of organization and management at Emory University.
Her research shows that generations exposed to hardships such as recessions tend to end up less narcissistic than those that face fewer large-scale challenges. Recessions seem to leave a humbling imprint on people who were young adults at the time. She says, well, if you grew up with hardly nothing and you grew up in humble ways and you value the dollar, unlike nowadays that people don't value money, it's like, oh, I could get another one of this. Even though it could be still working and it still looks fine, you want to get another and another. I mean, that's what we're teaching in this day and age,
That may mean that millennials still struggling to establish themselves in a slowly recovering economy might actually end up far less narcissistic than pre-2008 data would suggest.
On the world stage, history offers many examples of figures presumed to have had narcissistic personality disorders. A Napoleon complex is essentially being narcissistic, Watson says. And if you look at a video of Mussolini, he has a dominant chest-thumping body language, a very physical manifestation of what we might think of as narcissism.
Apparent self-assurance can propel a narcissist into power. If you are a great talker and people gravitate toward you, then your ego might drive you to seek that out, Rosenthal says.
At first, people's high narcissism and those with NPD can be quite charming, easily attracting friends, lovers, and voters. Over time, though, their self-focus can become insufferable.
So Brianna's asking, Mark, have you thought about getting an advanced degree in nursing, like nurse practitioner?
No, I've worked in the health field, gosh, since 1996, and I worked for hospitals of all types, nursing homes, universities, doing all sorts of different things. I had my own business. I have no intent of ever wanting. I'm 55. I'm like done with the learning stuff.
People high on the narcissistic scale tend to annoy friends and loved ones, at least occasionally, while those with NPD may ultimately send them fleeing, serially costing themselves jobs, friends, and spouses. People figure out that this isn't so great, Rosenthal says.
However, many people with healthy levels of narcissism are wrongly labeled as narcissists, which is a difference. When interpersonal tensions rise, whenever couples are in high conflict, they become more self-centered. Malkin says, rage makes narcissists of us all. And when we feel hurt or angry, we tend to focus on our own psychic needs and fail to show empathy towards others. Both classic narcissist behavior after a parent-teenager conflict or a feud between spouses, the term narcissist might be thrown out, and even when it never seemed applicable before. And I think we could, we did that.
Attest to that.
Yeah.
Another reason partners may label each other as narcissistic stems from how we pair off in the first place. A narcissist being more likely to attract what Malkin calls an egoist, someone who suffers from a lack of normal self-enhancement. They fear being a burden, so they can easily end up partnering with their opposite and getting stuck in the relationship.
One clue that a potential partner might be a narcissist, he or she claims to be great at everything except relationships. Malkin says narcissists might announce that they don't need anybody. They'll admit to preferring a trophy spouse to true love, and they're unable to do the fundamental repair work every relationship demands. And that's one of the things that I'm noticing this day and age. People do not want to work on relationships.
Right.
If things get hard and people just want to, head out the door.
Sparks of empathy. The impaired empathy aspect of narcissistic personality disorder can confuse those who haven't been trained to diagnose it. A complete lack of empathy would identify a psychopathic personality, but people high in narcissism or with NPD exhibit flashes of compassion.
The higher functioning narcissist has the capacity and the ability to empathize, Hubbard says, but ultimately their own needs come first. The empathy is often shallow and short-lived. They acknowledge that someone else is suffering, but that will quickly dissipate so they can get back to their own self-promotion.
Within a relationship, narcissists might be able to show empathy until something upsetting occurs, and they reflexively move to soothe themselves by putting a partner down. Even a partner is worth sacrificing if it makes them feel superior, Malkin says.
If a fragile self is the true underpinning of narcissism, one way to strengthen it is with self-compassion. A survey of more than 3,000 people showed that self-compassion led to more stable feelings of self-worth, as opposed to self-esteem, which has a stronger association with narcissistic traits.
An emerging body of research suggests that you can unblock the blocked empathy of people who are narcissistic by constantly focusing them on relationships, community, and connection to others. Malkin says, it makes sense. Unhealthy narcissism is a way of coping with attachment's insecurity. By increasing that security, narcissism drops.
Well, we've seen many movies. There was one we saw with The Rock, that the one girl who was all about her phone. That was a Jumanji. When people are faced in situations, they change.
Right.
Because you learn like, oh, life does not revolve just around me, and you start to really, things turn around. So this is very, very good there. That may be the most promising takeaway from the recent research on narcissism. Malcolm says, we used to think it couldn't be changed. So the good news is people who are me centered can change and can turn their life around.
So here's a brief cultural history of narcissism. In DSM-5 Girlfriends, a sketch from the latest season of Inside Amy Schumer, a group of women gathered to talk about recent relationships gone bad. each diagnosing her ex with increasingly pathological disorders and then attacking the one woman who suggests they might be off base. Slinging personality disorders in casual conversation has never been more in vogue. It wasn't always this way.
Narcissism was once a term used mostly in academic research and clinical diagnosis. Then in 1979, researchers developed the Narcissistic Personality Index. Culture historian Christopher Lasch published The Culture of Narcissism, and the term went mainstream.
In grad school, we talked about our narcissism freely, psychologist Craig Malkin says. In 2006, with Gene Twenge's book Generation Me, the idea that narcissism was on the rise nationwide and might be rampant among the millennial generation in particular entered the public consciousness.
Now some researchers are debunking claims of mass narcissism, expressing concern that a label meant to refer to a serious clinical disorder is being wielded after every breakup, family dispute, or selfie encounter. We might throw around the term too much when someone is just a little bit of a show-off or ends up in charge. Psychological researcher Seth Rosenthal says such individuals may have personality traits that seem similar to narcissism, but to really qualify as a narcissist, they have to have certain other motivations and behaviors.
Most concerning for some experts is the thought of a cultural rejection of healthy expressions of confidence or self-esteem. Self-esteem, as Mark said earlier, is healthy, psychologist David Ludin says. Narcissism is something totally different.
And then that's, people are being shamed. They're being labeled because one's confident, because one's outspoken, because one doesn't take BS from other as a narcissist. But clearly, this article has shown that it's not, something that should be thrown around lightly. I remember when I was in school and I was studying the DSM, everything that I read, I kept thinking everybody else had that disorder, because that's what tends to happen. And we have to be mindful, because we're not all psychology major, and we have no right to label people. I could understand in lovers quarrel, you and I were at each other's, whatever, and that's narcissist. Oh, she's
okay. But what happened, Papito, when we ended up making up, and people saw that you decided to return to your, most comfortable expression of you? What did you feel like, recently when people are like, Maritza was so much nicer. She just was so compliant and so sweet, and you're just mean. You're just always telling people what to do, and it's like
it's like people are trying to challenge my personality, and it's like a person that grows up with a bunch of brothers, or they're like the youngest kid, and then you have to learn that either you eat or be eaten, that kind of thing, and it's like people don't like opinionated people, and people don't like people that are confident. And it took me many years to reach this confidence, and you've done the same thing. You're a very sensitive person. And in that sensitivity, as the article has mentioned, one learns coping skills that before you get hurt, you're going to try to hurt others. And not in an intentional way, but it's just a self-defense mechanism that people do. So, throwing that word around, and possibly many people go through narcissistic stages in life that very easily explained here can be altered and change as we grow and evolve. I think that every person that is a member of the LGBT community at some point faces some form of narcissistic personality characteristics because of being hurt, being in a relationship broken, dealing with a world that doesn't accept us. So we as people, instead of judging, pointing fingers, name calling, need to be a little more compassionate, empathetic, and loving towards people that have had a hard life.
So Bern Takara says, is narcissism not just a disease of the modern world then, because nature is not promoted before robotic job training?
It is, and I think the article is very much saying that it is pretty much, there is a narcissistic diagnosis, but it's very minimal. They said 1% of the population might be true narcissistic. I think the word is just thrown around a lot, misunderstood. It's healthy for people to have some sort of an ego, to be, have high self-esteem, to take selfies, to like take pride in how they look without being labeled a certain way.
And let's not misdiagnose, as we tend to do so quickly, when people are confident, when they're, proud of themselves, when they're happy with their accomplishments, when they want to pat themselves on the back. That doesn't necessarily mean that a person is a narcissist.
Exactly.
We were told recently, hey, why don't you go check out Mark and Lena's channel, because they're quintessential narcissists. If you want to see narcissists, go head over there. It's like,
and that's, and that's dangerous grounds, because that person who has a diagnosed mental disorder has no right to mentally diagnose anybody, and again, the article explained very clearly that it usually shows up as depression or as, bipolarism and other things. And there are things that took place during people's youth that may have triggered these narcissistic personality types. It's one of the things that we as human beings can do, instead of pointing fingers to other people and trying to criticize people for being different or because you felt hurt, is to be compassionate and understanding and not try to point fingers at others, because that simply doesn't solve anything, but maybe try to make yourself feel better because you feel hurt. And that's usually what happens. Hurt people, And
then usually when you do hurt people like that, unless you are a true 1% narcissist,
right,
you're going to look back at what you said. You're going to take stock of what they really meant when you said them,
right,
and the impact that those words had. And as a person who is not a narcissist, not the 1%, you're going to look at your decision and you're going to think, wow, I made a mistake.
Right.
I don't want to do that again.
Right.
I don't want to be that way. So they end up, either pulling the video down because they feel bad. They're like, what got into me? Why did I do that? Why did I go there? Or they're just going to be, cognizant of not making the same mistake again in the future.
Right, exactly. And Bert Icarius says, school is designed to train, not thinking. Yeah, we're taught to memorize. We're not taught to analyze, to reflect, to be analytical. No, it's like a parrot. Just
Formulas.
Learn this and repeat it. They don't teach you how to look at the big picture. And that's because they, look at what we're seeing today. Corporations pretty much mindlessly, hire people, not for their skills. They just want a person to show up, and they program you to perform certain activities. They don't want people, I remember in the older days, they rewarded you for being thinking outside the box, for creating ideas. Now they just went, no, don't change the script. This is what we want you to do. So creativity is not even, applaud anymore. It's like they just want a machine. And that's why machines are actually, taking over.
There was a day and age in the health fitness industry where if you were to go join a gym, everybody who worked at the gym was fit.
Yeah.
Everybody there was a product of what the company wanted to represent.
Yeah.
Of a person, their body, taking pride in themselves and their appearance and stuff. And a lot of times what you see these days are not that.
Not at all.
You see, people just being hired to clean things and to put things away. And, it's like the business of physical, health and fitness has regressed.
Well, everything has been watered down. For instance, let's look at YouTube. You've got this likes or dislike. Okay, if I were the owner of this platform and somebody hit the dislike button, they would have to show who they are and give a reason why they dislike. People don't have any accountability. There's no accountability. If somebody doesn't like you, they haven't even listened to the entire show. They don't even know what the show is about, but they're coming in because they don't like you. So boom, they're doing that. People have no accountability. You don't like what is being said because of whatever reason doesn't give you the right to say, well, this is not good. I disagree with what you're saying, and you're entitled to disagree with what you're saying, but say why you did that. Or even if you hit the like button, well, I like this because it's helped me, give more accountability. This
Right.
day and age, there's no accountability.
It's anonymity.
Exactly.
Anonymity is what is being rewarded at this time.
Yeah.
This is what, I guess they believe in is, the anonymous
Mhm.
critic
Yeah.
or the anonymous praiser.
Yeah.
It's like it certainly works in their favor, because if they find that there's attraction to what's being said, YouTube does,
Mhm.
then they will then look at how many views someone has, and then
Right.
they'll figure out profit accordingly.
Exactly. But, this is the world we're living in. People are not accountable. They're not emotionally mature. I think that there is absolutely the characteristic of maturity missing in this day and age. The world 20, 30 years ago is a very different world today.
Yeah.
And it's not for the better. Like Burnt said, there's absolute suppression of creativity. There's just it's not rewarded. They just want machines. You go in the office every day, you do the same thing over and over again. Don't steer away from the script. Don't give any of your own insight. This is what the company stands for, and this is what we want you to do.
When you
Do not
worked at
change.
Walmart, there was a Walmart way of
Yeah,
doing
and
things,
God
right?
forbid if you did it any other way in Walmart. In my profession as an occupational therapist that I graduated with honors in 1996, things started to change where the therapist was no longer able to do what the therapist knew what to do. No, they wanted you to follow a certain protocol, even though that protocol didn't work. And it didn't work because you've been seeing patients for a very long time. They wanted you to do things a certain way. They rather you work on the documentation versus spending the time with a patient. And that's one of the things I couldn't continue in the field, because the field that I went into to help people didn't become about helping people anymore. It was all about the reimbursement for the establishment that you were working for. And I didn't get into that business for that.
When I used to work at Disneyland back in the day, I was a high schooler. I remember that Disney took us through Disney University. It was called Disney University. It was like 4 days of intense Disney-isms that one had to learn. And one of the isms that one had to learn if you worked in front of the public was if someone asked you, where's the carousel ride? Or where is it that you go? Which way is Frontierland or Tomorrowland? You would make sure that you didn't point your finger. You would point your hand in the direction, because pointing a finger was a little too abrupt, right? So it's over there. It's like you have to point your hand over there. It's like, it's like they groom people to be a certain cookie cutter robot for representing the company's values and the things that they want to project.
And that's with Brianna's question, or would I think about going to a nursing? I feel really bad for the nurses, and although some nurses make good money if you're high up there in specialty, but the way doctors treat nurses is horrible. As an occupational therapist, I sat around round table discussions as team members of every department, rehab and whatever, sitting down talking the protocol of the patient that you were dealing with. And I could not continue to work in the health field because it changed dramatically. It's not the same health field that I signed up for years ago, that I went 6 years of college for, that I graduated with honors for, thinking that I was going to be of service. I loved my job the first maybe 5 years. Things changed dramatically. And after that, then I went on my own business because I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm working on my own to help people, prevent them from getting to the hospitals, to the nursing homes. That's why I became so interested in nutrition. And that's why I became so interested in training people and teaching people how they could be the best that they can be.
I remember when I first got my job at a college, I was working at a Christian television network, and my parents had been connected to this network, helping out and volunteering and all that. And I grew up around it. But my dad told me, remember, one thing. This is not a ministry. This is a business. Don't think that you're changing lives for the purpose of like the kingdom of God or anything. You're not working for a church. You're not working for a ministry. You're working for a business.
The business
And I was
of
like,
God.
no, it can't be. Those people are saving people and witnessing. And it's like, no, they're not. They're making money. That's what they want.
It's a business.
And property. They're buying property and making money, investing money, and taking money.
Tax free, by the way.
Tax free. So I found out after that time the hard way, because it was only through like experiencing and seeing from the ground inside, you know, from ground zero, and noticing what they believed in, what their values were, and how they treated the employee, and how people were just cattle to them. And you know, I mean, so it's that same mentality.
It is.
You know,
I believe this day and age is either important for people to have their own business, because working for a company, there is no loyalty to the employee anymore. Those days are long gone. I was laid off from a company that I gave my heart and soul to because I was making too much money. So they were bringing in the new grads, which they pay them peanuts when they start. There's no loyalty. There's no nothing. They don't care if you know more than anybody else. They just want a body there that could fill out their paperwork. So I highly suggest people to use your skills to work for yourself, to do something that you're passionate about. Okay. On that note, guys, we do have a Patreon account, and I do take on clients, personal fitness consultations, meal plans, and all sorts of stuff. The link should be down in the description area. Our Patreon for Real Talk with the comments, also to support the show. If you like what you're listening to, if you like the information we provide, sometimes once or 2 times a week, sometimes 3, depending. We would like to start doing a lot more. So if you could commit to becoming a Patreon, or if you'd like to donate, there's also that Google Pay. We no longer use PayPal because we found that PayPal is not exactly what they say they are, and they're not a safe place to actually have donation sent to. And
so interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we are pretty much done for this evening. Thank you all for tuning in. We greatly appreciate you. If you have not subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. And remember to hit that notification bell. That I think they have choices. You could hit the all, and whatever we make videos, whether it's live or whether it's something that we just pre-record, you're
doing like an update on your physical.
Yeah. I started back on October 1st. Stop being a vegan, plant-based eater was not working for me. I still eat tons of vegetables. I love vegetables, but I'm adding fish, chicken, and we do have meat twice a week or something like that. Definitely trying to bulk up. Last time I weighed myself, I was 134. I'm trying to go up to like 165. You know, in this world that we're living in, as trans guys, we need to look the part. And not just the beard and whatever, but we need to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk, because we're living in a very violent world. And I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. But it's important to know how to defend yourself and defend the person that you're with, because we are living in very violent times. So, you know, my goal is to get up to 165, 170. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm training really hard, you know, back on my regimen of hormones. And I think that for 5-6 weeks that I've been on, my body's changed dramatically. My strength is, you know, off the chain. Considering that I'm 55, have a bad back, both shoulders. This shoulder got messed up. This has a surgery. This, I didn't want to go into the surgery because this wasn't that great after the surgery. But with that included, all these injuries, I'm still, for a 55-year-old, pretty much, I'm happy with the results.
I'm happy with the results too. I'm glad that you're back to feeling good about yourself and stuff. For a while there, you were kind of just in no man's land for a bit, you know. But we all have been. This has been a crazy year for both of us. This has been a really traumatic and life-changing year for the two of us.
It has. But thankfully, you know, everything's calm and great and better than ever. Our only to do now is like, we don't really like this place. For one of the things is the weather. It rains too much. I like the sun.
I love the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you-
I mean, my skin's. I'm gonna turn into
a white person.
white girl
I
pretty
know,
soon.
real soon, because it's like
Never happened before.
No, and as you get older, you don't want to be in cold weather and wet weather where everything hurts. You want to be in a more tropical environment, an environment that has more sun, and you could. I need my natural vitamin D.
Yeah, and we're looking at all these options, but there really are not that many if you want warm weather.
I know. I mean, we tried the cold thing. You lived in Minneapolis for Minnesota, and that's like, oof, and then the New Mexico thing, Silver City gets really cold. It snows. I'm not into snow. I'm not into skiing or any of that stuff. The rain, parking here is horrible. You go out to dinner, it's like, okay, let's try to find parking where we don't have to walk 5 blocks and get wet.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we canceled a movie night.
Start feeling it.
We canceled the movie night.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I don't know. Do you want to be cold when we get out of the movie, or do you want to get caught in a downpour?
It's no fun.
We're not Portlanders,
No.
and hats off to people that do live here.
Yeah. You guys like
more
it.
power to you.
Yeah.
But my experience, other than the beautiful fall and the summer that we had, hasn't been that great.
No.
Hasn't been that great.
No, because it's like, oh, it's raining again. Oh, we can't go for a walk, and we love to walk. I mean, we're walkers, and we don't like to walk in the rain or in the cold, for that matter.
Right. I don't know. Being tropical babies that we are, because my family comes from Puerto Rico, and your family comes from Cuba. So naturally, we would be better suited for warmer climate.
Of course.
I mean, for a warmer climate.
And as we're getting older, and plus, we're all about being fit. Who wants to like hide their body in coats and stuff like that? Tracy says, "Great to catch you live." And Burnt, it said,
"Be snowbirds and come back to Florida for the winter."
We'll probably move to Florida back again. And Burn says, "I enjoy listening to your shows, but usually not live." Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we're going to be doing our shows a little bit later on the Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Because we used to do it earlier.
At 6.
It seems to be working out better for us now.
6:45. I think it's a good 6:30, 6:45.
The sun goes down here like at just before 5.
Yeah.
So it gets dark super fast. So when we're like out and about doing our regular errands, we get caught into the night now. Yeah. And it's really sad. I wish they would just keep daylight savings going.
I know.
Than to be taking away more of our daylight, But
yeah.
Tracy says, "Great to catch you live."
Yeah. So yeah, that's all we got for today. So if you guys have, what was the show suggestion again? He wants to talk about
the skin condition.
Well, we talked about that, but I can't really, because I don't know what. But he said something about YouTube's new.
The new censoring and the new rules changing.
Because YouTube has been censoring for quite a while now. It's been a few years. I mean, they're gradually,
tightening the
rein, and it's really sad, because this is a creator's platform, and it's hard to create when you have boundaries, when you have to worry about, oh, can I say this or can I not say that? Is that, if I say this, is the video not going to get monetized? And it's like, gosh, I left Cuba when I was 5 years old because it was a communist country, although I was a kid and didn't have much to say about it, but America prides itself of being the land of the free, home of the brave, freedom of speech, being able to say what's in your mind and what's in your heart, and not to be able to feel worried that what you're saying is going to,
be restricted.
And I'm not saying that everyone's entitled to say bad things about people, because that's not what I'm talking about. But certain topics and certain subjects, one should be able to discuss freely without worrying about, oh, they're going to think this is a conspiracy, or oh, they're going to think this is that. I mean, that's not creativeness. us, but that's the world we live in. I think your channel is safe as long as you stay away from politics. Yeah, we don't do politics. That's one of the things I've never really been political. I think both wings belong to the same bird anyway. But yeah, it's mostly health, and we talk about spirituality and just real talk. We're going to be bringing more stuff that's in the news, things that people are talking about that create interest. To try to build the channel. So guys, if you haven't subscribed or tell your friends, and to get more subscription and things of that nature. Because
I'm not looking forward to a road trip.
Oh, I know.
If we move all the way back to Florida, that's like the longest drive.
I know.
But it'll be nice just to be able to.
Yeah.
Finally, I guess I would think find a home.
Yeah. It's been we've been everywhere. We've yeah, it's tiring. I mean, I'm 55 years old. I'm tired. I just want to settle, but this is not a place that I want to settle, because do I want to live for the rest of my life? Soggy, wet, dreary, cold place? No, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this place was so dreary, wet, and cold. About Portland, Oregon. I didn't even realize how north it was. Geographically, I was like, oh, Oregon sounds nice.
Portland, California.
Yeah. But it rains here. It rains here too much for my liking. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for those that participated in chat, and for those of you that are viewing. We love you guys. But remember to always love yourselves too. Good night and be well. Take care.